When it comes to the Lion King, there's no doubt that Simba and Mufasa were great kings to the Pridelanders and always did what they deemed was best for the kingdom. Well, it turns out that this behavior could either be considered as genetics or simply a learned trait, as it seems that Mufasa's kind and earnest nature can be traced as far back as his own grandfather. Get ready, because here is the full story of Mohatu. Like I said, Mufasa was a great king and arguably the best one that fans have gotten to actually see depicted on screen, but that's likely because of his royal and upstanding lineage. Fans of The Lion King have been trying to figure out what exactly Simba's family tree would look like, and even though most of the side stories and theories on the internet aren't considered canon, the most common connections tend to be from Mufasa's side of the family. This is because a lot of novels that were released between The Lion King and The Lion King 2 seem to revolve around Mufasa and sometimes even his elders, like The Lion King, The Brightest Star, a book published by Walt Disney Records in 1994. In this story, which technically isn't considered canon, fans got to learn about Mufasa's grandfather as the lion tells Simba stories of the old kings. Not only did the story show that Mufasa's family had been leading the Pridelanders for 2 generations, but it also showed where Mufasa likely learned all of his kingly mannerisms. Now, I know what you're wondering. What made Mufasa's grandfather so great, and why does that even matter? Well, much like Mufasa and Simba, it turns out that Mufasa's grandfather did everything he could to respect all of the other animals in the Pridelands, even if they weren't lions, even during dire times. You see, the Brightest Star novel starts by describing a young Simba as he sat atop Pride Rock with his father Mufasa. It's a cold winter's night and the pair of lions are looking out at the sky when Mufasa points out the brightest one. According to Mufasa, the story of the star goes all the way back to the story of his grandfather, a great lion named Mohatu. According to the story, Mohatu had become the king of the Pridelands right before they were hit with a terrible drought. As a way to save the animals, Mohatu made a new law that said every animal in the Pridelands could only drink a set amount of water from the watering hole. Now, most kings may have made it so that they, along with their family and other nobles, could drink first. Not Mohatu, though. According to Mufasa's story, his grandfather declared that lions would be the last to drink because they could last the longest without water. That said, not every lion obeyed this law, and one particularly lazy lion almost ruined it for everyone as he showed up and drank more than he was supposed to. The other animals were intimidated by the lion, and as you might expect, this would cause a problem for Mohatu eventually. Mufasa continued the story by telling Simba that the drought got worse, and eventually his grandfather would take it upon himself to search for another water source. Mohatu's journey took him far from the Pridelands, but eventually brought him to a lush jungle that was home to a massive river. As Mohatu rested near the river, though, Mufasa explained that he heard a loud crying noise. It was then that Mohatu discovered a large crocodile that was crying because nobody would spend time near him in the river. The crocodile claimed that he tried to bite one of the hippos, so Mohatu explained that it would have to earn the animal's trust back if he didn't want to be lonely. Not only that, but the lion reassured the crocodile that he would help. The story continues with Mohatu making his way back to the Pridelands, and on the way, he runs into a hippo who admitted to being too afraid of the crocodile to go to the river to drink. Shortly after, the lion ran into a wildebeest who claimed to be too afraid of the hippo to go to the water. The last animal that Mohatu met on his journey was a zebra that was hiding among the wildebeests so that it wouldn't be eaten by a lion. As you'd expect, the zebra wasn't going to leave the wildebeests, which meant that they would need to go to the river before the zebra would ever consider it. Mohatu continued his journey home as he figured out the solution to not only his problem but the other animals as well. Mufasa told Simba that his grandfather declared that the animals would all journey to the river together, but no one was to harm anyone on the way. Understandably, none of the animals believed Mohatu because of the incident with the lazy lion who didn't obey the laws. This caused chaos to break out among the Pridelanders, and eventually they all raced to the new water source on their own, causing a lot of damage in their wake. According to the story, the zebra made it to the river first after trampling over a cheetah on its way. However, it didn't realize that it was standing in quicksand and was soon crying out for help. Mohatu arrived at the scene with the injured cheetah on his back and quickly tried to figure out a way to save the struggling zebra. Lucky for him, he happened to know someone massive who lived in that particular river and needed to earn some trust back. Mohatu convinced the massive crocodile in the river to help, and it managed to save the zebra with its tail, while also proving Mohatu's whole point that the animals should be working together, especially in dire times like a drought. The story continued with the zebra thanking the crocodile, followed by the rest of the animals coming together and finally drinking their fill of water. Lucky for the Pridelanders, the journey to the river would only have to be made a few times because Mufasa claimed that soon after, a great rain came to the Pridelands and it once again was lush and green. That didn't stop Mohatu from visiting the friends that he met along the way to the Great River, though. As Mufasa explained it, the Pridelands prospered for many years under Mohatu's kind and polite leadership. That is, until the great king's life sadly came to an end, as they all must do someday in the great circle of life. King Mohatu supposedly died on a cold winter's night, much like the one that Mufasa was telling the story to young Simba. The animals around the Pridelands all grieved heavily over the loss and even began fighting amongst themselves once again. But just as the Pridelanders felt they would never know peace again, they all noticed a mysterious star appear in the sky. It shined brighter than any other star around it and, for some reason, made all of the animals feel a sense of peace, harmony, and unity. Since that moment, the Pridelanders all dedicated that star to Mohatu and dubbed it the spirit of their king. Now, how does this all connect to Mufasa and the way that he acted when he was the king of Pride Rock? Well, according to the novel that officially introduced Mohatu, he was Mufasa's grandfather, and based on the way that Mufasa told Simba his story, you can tell that he feels at least some sentiment toward the former king. Now, this is where things turn from a non-canonical story into more of a fan theory / fan fiction. You see, much like Mohatu, a lion named Ahadi was also introduced through a novel based on the Lion King universe, and he was actually Mufasa's father, but it's unclear whether or not he was Muhatu's son or not. While some fans believe that Mohatu was Ahadi's father, others suggest that the lion may have actually been Mufasa's grandfather on his mother's side. This would make Mohatu Uru's father. For the sake of this video, though, we're going to focus on a theory that suggests that Mufasa was related to Mohatu through his father Ahadi. This would mean that Mohatu was the first great king of the Pridelands and then passed the title down to his son Ahadi, who would eventually pass the crown to Mufasa and then Simba. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the Pridelands were set up for great things from the moment that they became somewhat unified, as Mohatu had paved the way as a great king to make more rule just like him. As you can probably tell from his story, Mohatu valued life and balance within the Pridelands even when those around him were suffering through a drought. He saw what the Pridelands could become when there wasn't order, and he clearly worked tirelessly to make sure that he could properly manage the chaos so that the lands and the animals could thrive as one. He was so impactful as a king that when he passed away, the animals essentially dedicated the brightest star in the sky to him so that they would always feel him watching over them. Now, there's a good chance that if Mohatu was as great a king as they said, he raised his children to hold the same exact values that he did. This would mean that if he was Ahadi's father, he would have done the best he could to shape him into a proper and respectful king. This trend would then continue as Ahadi raised his children, Mufasa and Scar, to be kind to other animals as well as to strive for balance. What's really cool, though, is that if this is true, fans actually saw this continue as Mufasa explained to Simba about balance and the circle of life in the first animated film. Now, Simba didn't get to spend much time with Mufasa considering his untimely death, but there's no telling how much time Mufasa got to spend with Ahadi or possibly even Mohatu. All I know is that him being raised and taught life lessons by Mohatu and Ahadi would make a lot of sense considering the fact that Mufasa is also considered to be a great king. What do you think, though? Was Mufasa's relationship with his grandfather Mohatu correlated with the way that he ran the Pridelands, or was Mufasa just a naturally good leader? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.